You have access as a senator to high-level intelligence. You have more access now that you are Secretary of State. Does the intelligence leave no doubt that COVID-19 came from the lab in Wuhan, China?
Well, I wouldn't say that it leaves no doubt. I would say, and I've long believed this, and I've said this irrespective, just common sense tells you, that the chances that this was and I say an accident, we know that the Chinese spent years, in some cases with Western funding, taking viruses and re-engineering these viruses, trying to predict what if this virus carried over into humans, what would it look like? And they were probably doing it because they were trying to come up with a vaccine for it. Let's say somebody got infected, messing around with that in a lab. They went out into Wuhan, they gave it to 10 people, those 10 people spread it to the world. I think the evidence is compelling that that's exactly what happened here. And I put out a report as a senator that detailed all kinds of circumstantial evidence that proved that as well. So I think, in my view, based on everything I have seen, that the likeliest situation here was that the Chinese were messing around with the virus, somebody caught it in a lab, and they took this novel virus and spread it through China and then spread it to the world, and it was devastating. And there needs to be accountability for that.
I was just going to say, there really has been no accountability for the CCP.
The accountability begins by proving it. And it's hard to do, right? Because the Chinese are not necessarily going to open their books. Look, if that had happened in the United States, if that had happened in some other country in the world, that country would have probably been forthcoming and said, we had a problem, guys, we were messing around with this stuff, and look what happened. They would have shared that information, and we could have worked very quickly, much faster than we were able to figure out how to counteract it. And they didn't. Instead, what they did is clam up and refused to share information with the world, and then this thing spread and just ravaged the global economy. Just think about how many people died, how many businesses went out, how much money we had to spend in this country just to keep Main Street open when we had the shutdowns, how divisive it became. Some of that could have been prevented if they had been forthcoming. But instead, like most authoritarian regimes, they clammed up and they held that information back. So I think we have to do two things. We have to, if we can prove that this is what happened, and I think the day will come when we might be able to prove it. We need to show that to the world. But we also have to make sure this never happens again. Because if they were doing that, we have to assume they're still doing that. And we have to assume that they're still doing that and that this could happen again. And it could be even more devastating than COVID, as hard as that is to believe. We can't let that happen. And I think, by the way, a lot of countries in the world suspect this too. They may have the guts to say it, they may not want to stand up to it, they may not want to have to take on the wrath of China because they don't have our standing and our stature. But I think a lot of countries in the world suspect that that's what happened here as well. But we're the United States, and if we can prove it, we need to. And at least put the evidence out there that this is what's indicated.